Graduations are supposed to feel hopeful. That's what everyone says. But sitting in the back row of the auditorium that afternoon, watching my sister accept her diploma, the only thing I felt was familiarity. The same quiet distance I'd felt most of my life. Emily crossed the stage to applause that seemed louder than the rest. She always had that effect. Teachers liked her. Relatives bragged about her. My parents built entire conversations around her accomplishments. Yale had been the final confirmation of what everyone already believed. Emily was the future. The ceremony ended in a wave of camera flashes and congratulations. Families poured out onto the lawn where tables had been arranged for a reception. My parents stood at the center of it all, greeting guests like hosts at a small political event. I stayed near the edge of the crowd. It wasn't uncomfortable. Just expected. Growing up, there had always been two versions of us. Emily was the disciplined one, the focused one, the person my father described as built for success. I was the other one. The one who changed majors. The one who took jobs that didn't impress anyone at dinner parties. The one my father sometimes referred to half-jokingly as the family experiment. Over time, the joke hardened into something more permanent. The useless one. It had been said enough times that people stopped noticing it. My father eventually climbed onto a small platform near the center of the lawn to give a speech. Someone handed him a glass. He loved speeches. "Today," he said, raising his voice just enough for the crowd to settle, "is about recognizing what real dedication looks like." Emily stood beside him, smiling politely. "She's worked harder than anyone I know," he continued. "And that's exactly why she'll carry this family forward." A few people clapped. My father gestured toward her. "One day, this young woman will inherit everything we've built. The estate. The company. Every piece of it." More applause. He was enjoying the moment. "Even my watch," he added with a small laugh, tapping the gold band on his wrist. People laughed with him. I watched from the back of the lawn. Not angry. Just unsurprised. This was the story my father had been telling for years. Today he was simply saying it out loud in front of an audience. The applause eventually faded, replaced by the hum of conversations and champagne glasses clinking. I turned slightly toward the parking lot, thinking it might be time to leave quietly. That's when someone stepped beside me. "Excuse me." His voice was calm. I looked over. A man in a black suit stood there holding a thin leather folder. He looked familiar in the vague way professionals sometimes do around family events. "Are you Daniel?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm Michael Reeves," he said. "Your family's corporate attorney." That caught my attention. He held out a sealed envelope. "This was meant for you," he said quietly. "Your grandfather instructed that it be delivered when certain circumstances became relevant." I took the envelope without opening it. "Relevant to what?" I asked. Reeves glanced toward the center of the lawn, where my father was now introducing Emily to several business associates. Then he said something that made me pause. "Relevant to ownership." I opened the envelope. Inside were several official documents, legal filings, trust agreements, signatures. My grandfather's name appeared again and again. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at, then the structure became clear. Years ago, near the end of his life, my grandfather had transferred the controlling ownership of the company and estate into a trust. The trust had one primary beneficiary. Me. I looked up slowly. "There must be a mistake." "There isn't," Reeves said. "But my father—" "Your father manages the company," he said carefully. "He does not own it." I glanced back toward the reception. My father was shaking hands, telling stories, introducing Emily as the future of the company. "He knows about this?" I asked. Reeves gave a small pause before answering. "He knows the trust exists." That wasn't the same thing. Across the lawn, my father had begun telling the same speech again to a smaller group of investors. "One day Emily will take over everything," he was saying. Reeves followed my gaze. "Would you like me to clarify the situation?" he asked. The question hung in the air. For a moment I imagined walking away, letting the story continue the way it always had. But something inside me had shifted. Not anger. Just a quiet understanding that the version of me my father had been presenting to the world was built on an assumption that no longer held. "All right," I said. We walked across the lawn together. My father noticed us halfway through his sentence. "Daniel," he said with a faint edge of irritation. "We're in the middle of something." Reeves spoke before I could respond. "Mr. Carter," he said politely, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding regarding the company's ownership structure." The small circle of guests fell silent. My father frowned. "What misunderstanding?" Reeves opened the folder and handed him a document. "This trust agreement, signed by your father in 2012, designates Daniel as the controlling beneficiary." My father stared at the page. Emily leaned slightly closer to see it. "That's not," my father started, then he stopped. "Because the signatures were there. The legal seal, everything," Reeves continued calmly. "The company and estate are legally held by the trust. Operational management remains with you, but final ownership authority rests with Daniel." The group of investors exchanged confused looks. Emily looked from the paper to me. I didn't say anything right away. Eventually my father lowered the document. His expression wasn't angry. It was something more complicated than that. "You knew about this?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not until 10 minutes ago." Silence settled over the lawn. For the first time in my life, the role everyone had assigned to me didn't fit the facts in front of them. I could have said a lot of things then. Instead, I just looked at my sister. "You still graduated from Yale," I said quietly. Then I nodded once to the attorney and stepped away from the circle. The reception continued behind me, but the story my father had been telling about our family no longer sounded quite the same.